Hey guys, it is Mersh. Welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to be going over some of the raid terminology that is used throughout the game that a lot of new people coming into the game may struggle with, and it's just general terminology in the game that I feel like you'd need to know, especially if you're going to watch like YouTube content on it or read any guides, to be honest. And this is normally stuff that is going to be specific to Raid Shadow Legends, but there is a few sort of words in this list that will also apply to other games that you may play. So I'll just get straight into it, no messing about. So the first one that we have here is food. Now, food refers to the idea of sacrificing champions to be able to rank up your champion of choice. With food, or with ranking up champions rather, you would normally say, for example, you wanted to make a 3-star champion a 4-star champion. You'd have to get the 3-star champion to level 30, the one that you want to level up, and then you'd have to sacrifice three 3-star champions to take it to 4-star. Same with 4-star, you have to get the 4-star to level 40, then sacrifice four 4-star champions to get to level 50, and then I'm sure you can guess what you'd need to do to get the 6-star. Now, the reason it's called food is because you're essentially feeding that champion, and you're giving him all these other, or her the other champions to make them stronger. You're feeding them; they're going to be big and strong, and that's essentially what food means. Now then you have starter. Starter simply refers to when you very first start the game, you will get a choice of 4 different champions. That will be Aethel, Elhain, Kael, and Gaelic. And essentially, your starter champion is just one of those 4 champions, whoever you decide to go for. Normally, the word starter is thrown about at the start of your raid journey, and it's in the debate of who is the best starter. Most people think it's Kael, and for very good reason. I think Kael is, me personally, I think Kael is by far the best starter, just because he brings unique debuffs that the others don't bring. And the significance of the debuffs he brings is very hard to find in the early game. So yeah, that's just a little bit of controversial knowledge there for you. Okay, so sets. Sets will refer to when you're gearing a champion, and as you can see, there's these like little icons next to the champions. Um, and essentially, all a set is a combination of artifacts with the same like little pictures, which will give you extra bonuses for having them equipped. These brackets here next to the artifact set type will essentially tell you how many of these artifacts that you actually need to be able to get this set bonus. So, for example, the life set is the first one on the list. In brackets, it's got 2, which means every time you have at least 2 of these equipped, you're going to get this bonus. You can stack this, it can go up to 6, and then you get this bonus 3 times. It'll be 45% extra HP. With offense, it's a 2, 15% per 2 like offense artifacts that you have. However, when you get to the 4 ones, obviously you can't equip this multiple times because you only have 6 slots available to you. And with the 4 one, it just means that you need to have at least 4 of these pieces to be able to get the bonus. With lifesteal, for example, if you're using 4 of these pieces, you'll get to heal by 30% of the damage you deal. I don't have any on this particular account, but there is an exception to this basic rule, which would be stone skin and protection gear. With those pieces, for every additional artifact that you have, the bonuses that you get become stronger. And you can have one and get like the tier 1 like bonus for that artifact, or you could have all 6 pieces and get the maximum, all of your like uh, all of the essential bonuses that that artifact set would offer, and you could have any combination in between. So you could have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and they will all give you different bonuses. They'll all give you the bonuses of the ones before plus an additional one. So for each artifact that you equip, the bonuses gets slightly stronger. So that would be sets. Flat stats refers to this bottom row here of artifacts. With raid, your weapon will always give you attack, your helmet will always give you HP, and your shield will always give you defense. They are like 100%, and your substats can vary. They can be pretty much any substat. However, with the bottom row of artifacts, it is different. It is not the same. So your gloves are going to give you a wide range. Well, to be honest, all of these bottom ones can give you a wide range of stats. Your boots, sorry, Your gloves are the only ones that can give you crit rate and crit damage as a main stat. And then it also gives you HP percent, defense percent, attack percent, and then all of the flat stats. Where this becomes relevant, right, is when you're trying to gear a champion the best you can, you want to go for percent stats over anything. Well, over the flat stats. So the flat stats would be any of the stats that could appear that are not percentage stats. So, for example, I guarantee I have some on this account. There you go. So these boots, for example, normally, actually, you know what? I'll do gloves since I've already spoken about gloves. So yeah, these gloves, they give flat attack, which is really, really bad. These gloves need to be sold. Because if I'm gonna run with attack gloves, I would want it to be attack percent, because 12 attack without any leveling would be a lot less than, say, I don't know. Do I have any attack percent ones? I do. So yeah, so 20% of your base attack is just going to be way more than the flat amount of attack that you're going to get from this. The other reason for that is that any percentage will scale with like your base stats. Crit rate and crit damage are the exception. But yeah, flat stats is just referring to any of these kind of like gear pieces that are running with no percentage on them versus the ones that have a percentage on them. But if we were to use these, you would get, well, like less 10. You'd lose 10 attack by using these. If you were to use these, the same level of gloves, the same star rating, you're actually going to gain 150. Now, this is a bad example because Ignatius does not use attack. It's just for like to show you guys the example of how much of a difference that will actually make. If you use flat pieces, you're very like limited on what you can actually achieve with the build. If you use percentage ones, then the numbers are just going to go up way, way higher. So that would be flat stats. Percentage stats I've already covered. They're like essentially the opposite of what flat stats would be. Another thing to note, by the way, is these will always only be a flat stat at the top, right? It's just going to give you a base level of those stats, whereas these ones, they can do the percentage ones, and this is where you like really want to focus on the like the main stat for sure. Like you just want good main stats in your builds. With boots, you're going to want speed, which is a flat stat, but you can't get speed percent as a stat. You can only get it as a set bonus with like speed gear or something. Um, with your chest plate, you're going to want HP, defense, or uh, attack if it's a nuka that scales off attack. But aside from that, there is some exceptions, but you don't normally need to use the other ones like that often. So you can get accuracy chests, which are really good if you just want to get an insane amount of accuracy on your champion, and you can also get resistance for the same reason. Okay, then we have 12-3 brutal or 12-3 hard. This is simply referring to the stages in the campaign, because it might not always be 12-3. It could be 12-6. They could say, no, 6-4 or 6-7. And all that essentially is saying and like suggesting is that it's simply what level of campaign it is. So it could be 1 all the way up to 12 and any number in between. It's just what level campaign and then what stage within that level that you're currently running. So people will say 12-3 a lot because 12-3 is just normally the best place to be able to farm XP on campaign to level up your champions. And with 12-3 in particular, you'd be wondering why not these other ones like stage 6. Well, with stage 3, you drop shields, and shields for some reason sell for more silver than any of the other artifacts do. So by preference, people will farm stage 3 on level 12 of the campaign, usually on brutal, because again that gives like this is the most attainable good XP that you can get without moving on to Nightmare, which again is just kind of absurd. It's like double the energy and double the XP. So it's quicker all around, but it's a lot more intensive to actually be able to farm it. But yeah, those kind of numbers are literally just referring to the levels in campaign that you can do. Affinities, I've already made a guide on this, but essentially it is just the sort of color that is next to this little champion. And check out the guide if you want to know what affinity actually is. But essentially, it just means like what class of champion that is, essentially. So you've got Spirit, which is the green one. You have Magic, which is the blue icon. You have Force, which is the red icon. And then you have Void, which is the purple one. I've already gone into quite like a fairly in-depth guide on affinities, so go and check out that video. Uh, Essentially, all it is that there's a rock paper scissors mechanic between Spirit, Force, and Magic. Spirit counters Force, Force counters Magic, and Magic counters Spirit, and Void is neutral. And they have like weird quirky bonuses, but if they're saying like I can't beat, I don't know, Void Clan Boss, oh no, that's a bad example. If they're saying that they can't beat, say, Spirit Clan Boss, it just means that that is the affinity of Clan Boss that they struggle the most with, and 9 times out of 10, it's going to be due to the affinities of the champions that that person is using. Then you've got buffs and debuffs. Now, these are within a fight, and debuffs are going to be shown in red, and buffs will be shown in blue. And essentially, all it is like extra effects that your champions can bring and put on other champions or your own champions to enhance or restrict their abilities. So, buffs would be something like heal on your team, or like continuous heal on your team, increase accuracy, increase defense, increase attack, increase speed. Debuffs would be the exact opposite of that: decrease defense, decrease speed, uh, decrease attack. It's basically just like the polar opposites of each other. You can place debuffs on the enemy, and the enemy can place debuffs on you. You can place buffs on yourself. The enemy can place buffs on themselves. That's all that is. Turn meter and speed. So speed is a stat that a lot of people do get confused with in the early game, and they don't really realize how important it is. So with speed, it essentially means how frequently your champion is going to be able to take a turn, right? So I'll show you in like a quick campaign battle. You're going to see there's like this turn meter underneath all of the champions, right? This turn meter will determine who is going to take their turn in what order. Whoever's bar fills up to the top first will be the person who takes a turn. So as you can see, Ignatius is by far the fastest in this because he's taking his first turn before anybody else is even on that like last little like stretch of their turn meter bar. And yeah, he's just fast enough to be able to take their turn. These guys finished their turn meter before the enemy did, so they got to go and cut in first, right? That's essentially all speed and turn meter is. That's why speed is important, because if your champions are faster, then they'll take more turns and they'll cycle through their ability cooldowns a lot faster. And if you could do more abilities and take more turns, you're going to do more damage and more likely win, right? Then you have unkillable and traditional. Now you're only really going to see these when it comes to the clan boss. The clan boss, like the basic one, the normal Demon Lord one. Let me just show you because there is two now. So you have the Demon Lord, you have Hydra. These are both clan bosses. But when you're talking about unkillable and traditional teams, you're talking about the Demon Lord. He's the original clan boss. He was in the game for a lot longer than Hydra has been. And normally they're trying to hit Nightmare or Ultra Nightmare. And it's essentially two styles of teams that you can actually go for. Unkillable are essentially teams that don't worry about defensive stats. However, because the reason they don't have to worry about defensive stats is because they bring in champions who will either place an unkillable or a block damage buff to essentially mean that the clan boss will never be able to damage any of them. So it means you can essentially just live until the 50 turn limit. If you don't know, the Demon Lord has a 50 turn limit where after 50 turns he will ignore block damage and unkillable, and he will put block revive on you. So if you're running an unkillable or block damage team, they will fall after 50 turns. So essentially you have 50 turns to get as much damage in as you can. Traditional do not worry about that 50 turn mark because they don't rely on unkillable or block damage buffs. Traditional, you normally want very high defense on all of your champions, you want ally protection, you want shields, and you're essentially just trying to tank as much of the damage as possible and make your team as tanky as possible to try and last as long as you can to get all your damage out, basically. Then you have some champions who have had their name shortened, and if you don't know the champion and you're not familiar with Raid, you're not going to have any idea what these like shortened names means. Excuse me. So you've got Bad Elcazar, which is BEK. You've got ME, which is Man-Eater. PK, which is Painkeeper, and RG, which is Royal Guard. Um, Obviously, a lot of champions can be shortened. These are the four most common ones, at least that I have seen. If you can think of any that are quite commonly shortened, please let me know and leave them down below for other people who might be struggling with this. But yeah, essentially, if you see just like random letters jumbled together, chances are it's just going to be the name of a champion shortened down. AoE just means area of effect, and essentially this applies to any ability in the game which will hit multiple champions at once. Normally, it refers to abilities which will hit every champion. However, there are some like multi-hit abilities which have the potential to hit AoE, but they also might not. So there's a bit of a grey area there. Nuker, that's essentially the person you rely on in your team to do all the damage. Leader, when you are creating a team or going into a battle, you have this slot here, which is literally labeled leader. And essentially, that's just going to be the first person in your team. And they have, well, it's normally better to have a leader who has an aura. So this one will increase allied defense in all battles by 25%. As you can see, if we put Ignatius into that leader spot, we unlock this aura skill, which will increase our defense by 25% in all battles. That's all the leader thing is. It's not too complicated. If you look at these champions in the like champions screen, you can go into their skills, and down here it will say if they have an aura. So Deacon, for example, he can increase ally speed in all battles. Ruella, though, she has increased accuracy, and just by clicking on them, you can read what the different auras do. Now, some champions will not have an aura, which is why the whole leader thing is actually kind of relevant, because not every champion in the game has an aura, and not every champion in the game has an aura which will actually apply to all areas of the game, right? So some, I don't know if I have any examples on this account. Oh, some champions, I don't think I have got examples here. Maybe Rector Okay, yeah, so Rector has a very specific niche aura. Her aura is that it increases ally resistance in Doom Tower battles only by 55. It won't apply everywhere, so if I put her as the leader in Arena, it will not give my allies 55 extra resistance, sadly. So you just need to make sure you read the aura in like detail to be able to work out what it is. Okay, so that would be leader slash aura. Then you've got refills. Now, refills simply refer to, hang on, normally it refers to your arena tokens. So with arena, you have two sections. You've got classic arena and you have tag team arena. Classic arena, if you run out of tokens, you can essentially click on this and you can consume a refill. I don't know if I actually have any. I don't. Okay. So essentially you can get refills and all it does is either refill your arena tokens or you could get energy refills, which will restore your energy and give you the exact amount of whatever your cap is. So that's all refills are. Nothing too crazy, nothing too complicated. Then you have F2P, which is free to play. This simply refers to a player who is playing the game without spending a single penny on the game. As soon as they spend a penny on the game, they then become a low spender. And if they spend way more, and they spend a lot of money in the game, they become either P2P, P2W, or a whale. P2P is essentially you just pay to play. Not too relevant in Raid, but normally it's going to be whale if you're talking about Raid and spending money. But these are the three definitions of like the spenders, right? Yeah, pay to play, pay to win, which is essentially saying that there is elements in the game that if you were to buy with real money that thing in the game, it gives you an automatic edge over everybody else. And then you have whale, which is somebody who spends a ridiculous amount in raid, and they have everything because they just buy everything. They don't need to do any grinding because their credit card does it all for them. Okay, then you have these, and I've chosen these ones in particular because these are the most common ones, but these essentially refers to different areas within the game. You have FW, which would be Faction Wars, as you see here. It's quite a big section of the game, so it's quite popular. We'll take that chicken. And now raid is not going to load. But yeah, you've got Faction Wars. You have DT, which would be Doom Tower. FK, which would be Fire Knight. And IG, which is Ice Golem. These are just like some of the main areas in the game that do have their names shortened, just be easier of like communicating and typing. And then we have Book. Book is referring to the books, right? They're called tomes. So if you upgrade skills, right, you have to do so. So if you're upgrading an epic champion skills, you'd need to use an epic tome. And the reason they're called, or the reason they're called books, is because these tomes are literally, they just look like books. So normally, if you're watching like a champion guide, you'll be like, right, what's their book value? How many books is it going to take to be able to unlock their skills to the full potential? That's essentially all books means. Then you have WM, GS, and T6. These refer to masteries. So if we have a look at the masteries, as you can see, there is 6 different tier of masteries. So this top row is tier 1, second row is tier 2, tier 3, tier 4, tier 5, tier 6. It's important to note that only a 6-star champion has access to tier 6 masteries. And this is where WM and GS come in. WM stand for War Master, and wrong one. GS stands for Giant Slayer. These are common because these are the 2 best like masteries in tier 6 to help you kill bosses and help you do damage against bosses, especially clan boss. And then the final one is Proct. I didn't actually know how to spell it because it doesn't appear to be an actual word. But essentially, proc, I think it means programmed random occurrence. Well, proc would mean programmed random occurrence. And essentially all that means is whenever you're using an ability, that ability, say for example, it has an 85% chance of landing. And when it lands, people would say, oh, it's, well, it has procced. And what that means is that that 85% chance has landed and your ability has procced. The programmed random occurrence has happened. It has procced. But yeah, that is the end of the list. This is just all that I could think of. Hopefully you're still with me and it didn't bore you to death. But yeah, hopefully this is a guide that will help out new players to the game and work out sort of all this different terminology and be able to apply it to their game. But thank you very much for watching. If there's anything that I missed, please let me know down in the comments, and I will do my best to at least try and include it in the description if I think it's valuable enough to be able to educate new players. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed the video. Take care and peace.